It's been a long time coming, this executive order. We're talking years. We finally have it. What's in it?
Right. So I think that the Biden administration has been working on this for the last couple of years since they came into office. And this is definitely a major cornerstone of their policy toward China. I think that there's sort of more questions than answers at this point. They've basically, Biden signed an executive order which gives a year for industry to weigh in on how these restrictions will actually work. But the intent is to restrict the knowledge that comes with venture capital and private equity investment into sensitive areas of the Chinese economy, including advanced semiconductors, microelectronics, quantum computing, which think code breaking, and potentially artificial intelligence. So the definitions of how that will actually work and which sectors will fall into these restrictions and all of that is still somewhat to come. But what we know at this point is that there'll be notifications for some of these sectors and potentially restrictions, especially on things like quantum computing.
So it's all about protecting national security. This is the message we've continually gotten from administration officials like Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, who told our very own Anne-Marie Hordern that they were going to be targeted about this in the interest of national security. And indeed, this is more targeted. This is more narrow than what we may have previously thought. Why make it such a small part at this point? Why hedge that way?
Right. Well, I think the line that you'll hear from the administration is small yard, high fence. So that means a very narrow set of restrictions, but on very sensitive materials. And part of what you have to keep in mind with all of this is, of course, the U.S. is sort of seeking to normalize, to a certain extent, relations with China. So they don't want to get out too far ahead of themselves and implement some restrictions that are going to be viewed, particularly by the Chinese, as harmful to their economy and to their growth prospects. What they want to do is very narrowly tailor these to sensitive areas that could affect national security. The line that you hear often on Capitol Hill is, we don't want U.S. venture capital firms funding the next advanced Chinese fighter jet or something like that. So that's what they're really focusing on. I think the fear from some in the financial industry is that these restrictions could potentially expand over time. So this is just sort of getting the nose under the tent, and then after a while, these restrictions could grow. We don't see any indication of that right now, but that's always a risk.
But I'm glad you brought that up, because I wonder if there would be a push on that from the congressional side. You were just talking about Capitol Hill. There's a lot of China hawks in Congress, and I wonder to what degree they'll be satisfied with ultimately what the administration has decided to do here.
Well, I've heard from members of both sides of the aisle today as this executive order was being prepared to be rolled out and as it was rolled out, and I think it's safe to say that the feedback kind of runs the gamut. There's certainly some hawks on the Hill. Chairman Mike Gallagher of the Select Committee on China comes to mind, who want additional restrictions on venture capital and private equity investments into China. And there are those like Senator Casey, Bob Casey of Pennsylvania, who are largely happy with what the administration has done here, and they have he has some legislation to kind of back this up. So I think that this will be shaped as the defense bill comes together through the latter half of the year. The House will get a chance to weigh in. We could see some additional restrictions added, but this is far from the end of this debate, for sure.